Pediatric Secretary. I welcome you all to CapCon 2020. I request every moderator and every speaker to keep their videos on during their sessions. I hand over to Dr. Shishir Murgunde, who is the HOD Pediatrics, GM Medical College, Miraj. It's over to you, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Prasanna. Good afternoon, respectable faculties, moderators, all delegates, and all postgraduate students who have enrolled for this conference. I welcome for the first online virtual conference of Kolhapur Academy of Pediatrics.
You can't on the video when unable to access.
So why I'm saying first the virtual conference, because previously pre-corona area, since long time we are organizing this CapCon since so many years as in physical format, but for the first time in this pandemic of corona, we are taking it as a blessing in disguise. Though there was some anxious moments during the initial phases of pandemic, but now we are finding the path for proper execution of our plans, and now we could today at last arrange this virtual conference, and this conference is a dream came true today. We are organizing this prestigious activity for pediatricians in and around Western Maharashtra since last so many years, in the memory of first pediatrician of this city of Kolhapur, Dr. Kamlakar Chitnis, who sowed the seeds of pediatric practice in this small city. He was very humble and very helpful and devoted clinician as well as academician. On this occasion, we also remember one more founder of pediatric practice in Kolhapur, Dr. Devkinandan Karwa, who was also an astute pediatrician with great clinical acumen and social touch in his personal private practice. Today we are remembering both of them, and because of their inspiration, this regional activity of CapCon was started, and now we are continuing in the virtual platform today. So today we are very pleased and privileged to organize this CME with presence of renowned orators of national reputation, and Dr. Subba Rao, Dr. Ashish Atre, Dr. Mahesh Kamble, Dr. Rahul Kadam, Dr. Jagdish Dekhne, Dr. Rajendra Khadke from various parts of Maharashtra as well as our country. We are very much interested and enthusiastic today to learn many new and recent happenings today in diagnostic field of vaccinology. In today's morning session also, we had arranged poster and paper presentations in which all PG students were budding pediatricians. They participate very actively, and whatever be the results, academics has won today. With very passion and competitive mind, they participated in both the sessions. And the main attraction which we arranged for the first time in virtual conference is PG quiz. Dr. Kore and his team took a lot of efforts to organize this event, and it was a very wonderful activity for PG students, not only for showing their talent, but also learning some new things from their seniors and experienced pediatricians. So in due course of time, we will be facilitated with the introduction of our speakers and topics by our enthusiastic moderators, and we will have an exciting academic feast today. So I again welcome all faculty, moderators, delegates, postgraduates, and wish happy learning today. And I hope everyone will get benefited with the addition of useful knowledge today and apply it in their practice after going from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shishir, sir. Our first topic is ABC of X-ray chest in pediatrics. Our first moderators are Dr. Shilpa Hirugde, who is a well-known pediatrician from Kolhapur, and Dr. Kumboskar, who is a HOD pediatrics from CPR Medical College, Kolhapur. It's hand over to you, Kumboskar madam and Shilpa madam.
Thank you, Dr. Pawar.
तेव्हा असं असतं तेव्हा आपण ऑन नाही करू शकत. हे तुला बंद करायला लागणार.
Please continue, madam.
Yeah.
You are on.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. First of all, I am thankful to Team Capcom for allowing me to moderate the session ABC of Pediatric Chest X-ray. Everybody knows radiology was an accidental research, and this accident has tremendously changed the way we diagnose and treat the patients. As has been already said, children are not to be seen as miniature adults. The pediatric radiology is not to be correlated to its adult equivalent. Pediatric radiology is in itself a separate science and specialty. And here, let us learn all inside out of a pediatric chest X-ray at its specialist level by a specialist himself. Allow me to introduce today's presenter, an eminent pediatrician, Dr. Subbarao Sir, currently senior consultant at Manipal Hospital, Bangalore, former professor and HOD at St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, former president, IIP Respiratory Chapter, Karnataka branch. He has 35 publications in national and international journals. He is the founder director of Bangalore Pediatric Academy for PG training. Sir, we are privileged to have you as today's speaker. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers of the Kolhapur Academy, Dr. Shishir, Dr. Prasanna. Special thanks to Dr. Mahesh Kore, who introduced me to the Academy. And thanks to Dr. Shilpa for a kind introduction. Without wasting much time, let me share my slides. Please tell me whether a shared slide is visible or not. My slides are visible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can I
Yes,
proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, radiology, chest X-ray in the current scenario has become an orphan.
Oh, start video.
Once upon a time, the radiologists used to take pride in interpreting the chest X-rays and we used to depend on them. But with the availability of MRI, ultrasound, CT scan, PET scan and all the radiologists have moved to more fashionable imaging modalities and X-ray is left unattended. That's when I started the interest. So I always thought a pediatrician looking at the X-ray is more interesting than the radiologist because pediatrician has got a better clinical background of the patient in question. The interest, and then I'd like to share some of my experience. Sometimes my presentation may look very basic, but we'll start with the basics. That's what is more important. Very often we are like Sherlock Holmes. We are chasing the shadows, and after all, X-ray chest is nothing but shadows of different structures, the heart, the lung, trachea, and other things. So it's apt to say that we're trying to chase the lung shadows. Now, in today's discussion for about half an hour or so, we'll try to see how we can systematically interpret a chest X-ray and how certain technical issues like the exposure, the rotation can affect the interpretation of X-ray. And very, very commonly in small children, thymus can act as confounder. We'll also look at these issues. So let us start straight away. I have shown two X-rays, one on the right side, left side, and one on the right side. At a first glance, both of them look very, very similar. But let me tell you that the first X-ray on this side where my cursor is there is normal because I can see the tracheal shadow very clearly. I can see the vertebral column very clearly. A lot of retrocardiac structures are very easily visible. If the technician does develop it is an underexposed or overexposed, then you get into problem. But fortunately, in current era, we have got digital images and we can alter the exposure ourselves. So that problem doesn't arise now. But once upon a time when the manual exposure was done, this used to be a problem. And in that situation, a lot of shadows, the retrocardiac shadows would be missed. Like for example, here, you can see the vertebral column very clearly. Here it's not possible. Retrocardiac density can be seen here. It can. So technically, if it is underexposed film, it's difficult to interpret certain soft structures. But with the digital X-ray, I think this problem is solved already. Now, second thing, this is again another example of the degree of penetration. We'll not waste time. So what can we miss? We can miss a small pleural effusion. We can miss a small pneumothorax. We can miss pulmonary edema and interstitial infiltrate or a small loculated pneumothorax. All this can be missed if the exposure and penetration is not very good. Now, the second technical problem, you will see the difference here. This is a very well-centered X-ray. Both the clavicles are equidistant and you can see the structures normally. In this, you see the patient is definitely rotated. You can see the right clavicle moved away from the center, and that will give a distorted vision for the mediastinum, and you may wrongly interpret this as a mediastinal mass. So how do we say whether the film is properly centralized or not? In older children, you look at the medial end of the clavicle, they should be equidistant from the medial sterni. This is off, but in smaller children, generally clavicle doesn't come into the picture because an AP view we take. So we look at the anterior ends of the lower ribs, where they're equidistant, then you call them centrally placed. Now here there are two X-rays. The X-ray on the right looks grossly abnormal with huge cardia and things like that, but here it is relatively okay. What technical problem do we see here? It is the phase of the X-ray, but this is an expiratory film where you will see only less number of ribs. This is an inspiratory film and it's a normal shadow with a thymic shadow here. So the phase at which the X-ray is taken also matters for interpretation. Unfortunately, children, they can't hold their breath in inspiration, and X-ray technician is at a loss to focus it. They cry vigorously, so you'll end up. So when you interpret, you may find a lot of expiratory films and may treat them as abnormal. So be careful to see whether exposure, is it inspiratory or expiratory. Now, how do we say inspiratory, expiratory? We all know that we do the rib count. These marked in green are the anterior ends of the ribs, and you should be able to see about 6 or 7 ribs. Now, in the AP projection, there are a lot of overlap in the posterior ends and the anterior ends. So it may be difficult to look at the count the spaces. So one small technique which I have learned from my radiology colleagues is, if you hold the X-ray upside down, the optical paradox is released, and now you can easily identify the anterior ends of the ribs, and easy to count the spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on this side. So compared to a vertical film, an inverted film may give you a better picture. Of course, you should do it in discretion. If the patient's relative or somebody is seeing, they'll think you are mad to see the X-ray upside down. So be careful. But it's a useful technique to see whether it's a inspiratory film or an expiratory film. Children are always restless, more so if they're in the ICU. They'll be shaking a lot, so that may cause, for example, the child is crying vigorously. This has caused a double diaphragmatic shadow. You may wrongly interpret this as a basal pneumonia, right? So, and in the ICU, the position also may be semi-reclined. The vertebra may be crooked like this. All this will make you interpret X-rays improperly, especially in a child who is very restless. So make sure that these are all taken care of. Now, the most important thing what we should know is we always in children take an anterior-posterior picture. That means the X-ray plate is kept at the back and the X-ray tube is in front. And that will give you a different kind of picture. Unlike in bigger children adults where the X-ray plate is in front and the child is facing the wall and tube is kept short from the back. Now, when you see an X-ray, how do you say it's AP or PA? You can see the clavicles which are very well cutting the apex like this. But in an AP view, the clavicles are thrown out. You will see that the ribs are more oblique in a PA view and they are more horizontal in an AP view. And here the bony structures are very, very easily visible. And the scapula comes very well within the lung area. In contrast, a PA view, the scapulas are withdrawn. But that's a limitation you have to accept because in pediatrics, it's impossible to take a PA view, which is the ideal for interpretation. So, hello? Hello?
Somebody's mic is on. Please mute it.
Can I continue?
Yes, sir. Continue.
Yeah, sorry. Now, just to remember, when you see an X-ray, remember this acronym PRIM and make sure that these are all taken care of. The penetration, of course, in the current day of digital X-rays, this doesn't apply. is a rotation, which is very, very common in pediatric patients. And inspiratory versus expiratory, again, a very common problem in pediatrics. And a motion artifact, if the child is very restless and wriggling, you may get a lot of double shadows, which may get a problem. So basic thing is to look at the technical problems, and if in doubt, repeat a proper X-ray, then we'll give you correct information. And second point we should remember is never take an X-ray and hold it against the ceiling light and then see it. Always have a good view box so that you will not miss any soft shadows. Having said that, there are certain blind spots in the X-ray where interpretation may be difficult. One of the APCs, because a lot of bony structures come in. And then the retrocardiac area, especially AP projection, will be difficult. Shadows around the diaphragm may be difficult. And most importantly, which I have not marked it here, is the hilum, where we'll talk about the hilar shadows from little while from now. So be wary of making any diagnosis in these areas, and you may need a different modality of investigation, maybe a lateral plate or a chest CT, if you think there's anything suspicious in these areas. So be careful when you enter. Now I have an X-ray here, which is casting an abnormal shadow. I just wanted to make it interactive, but I'm told it's not possible. You'll see a very triangular shadow here. And a lot of times I have seen PGs misinterpreting as a collapse and then treating this child with a lot of antibiotics. But in fact, it is a thymic shadow. And this goes by the name, what is another sail sign. It is like the sail of a boat. In children less than 2 years, thymus is pretty large, and that can cast a mediastinal shadow. So be very careful. If the child is otherwise asymptomatic, these shadows should be left alone. And we should know that thymus comes in various sizes and shapes. And I've given an example of different patterns. You can see it in the textbooks. You can cast like a wide mediastinum. Right lobe can be enlarged, right? The cardiothymic junction may be oblique. So it can come in different patterns. So be very, very wary of a thymus causing a confusion in your interpretation. And that's why I called it the thymustic confounder. Now, what you should realize is thymus is pretty large in the neonatal period. And as the child grows, the thymus shrinks. By about 2 years, it comes to normal size. And that's when it makes the vasculature and hilum more easily visible. In a smaller child, because the size of the thymus, it may be difficult to interpret, but sometimes the pathologies of the thymus itself can mislead you. So be very careful in small children. If there's a mediastinal widening, ask yourself, is it a technical problem, or ask yourself whether it's a thymic shadow. Now we'll go to the title of my topic was ABC, but I've taken the liberty of making it ABCDE. And we look at these alphabets, and you will know if you follow this, you're not likely to miss many things in the X-ray. So let us see what is this ABCDE approach. Now, A stands for airway, as it highlighted here. B stands for breathing, or it can also stand for bones. C stands for cardiac silhouette. And then D stands for other. So airway, look at first, when you look at the X-ray, rule out the technical problems like exposure, the rotation, inspiratory, expiratory. Then first look at the airway. We'll show some examples. Then you look at the bones or the breathing or the parenchyma. Then you see whether the cardiac silhouette is normal. Then never forget to look at the diaphragms. And then very importantly, lot of times we have picked up shadows outside the chest. It may be a subcutaneous emphysema or a calcified lymph node in the axilla, or a subcutaneous fat like in hydrops. So looking beyond the lungs is also as important as looking at them. So this is what we call as the ABCDE approach. Now the airway can be a tracheal narrowing. The breathing or B could be consolidation. C could be a cardiac shadow. And then D could be a diaphragmatic problem. And others like rickets, or it could be a subcutaneous emphysema, or a pneumothorax, or a lamellar field. So if you remember ABCDE plus technical problems, then your interpretation of X is more or less complete in a pediatric patient. So let us look at some examples of how we look at the airway problem. So let us look at the A. And basically, when we say A, we are looking at the trachea. This is a child who has a GB syndrome, who was intubated, ventilated for a long time, and then came back later with a stridor, and you will see very classic subglottic stenosis. And this requires a lot of airway reconstruction. And simple plain X-ray will give you a clue of the tracheal narrowing. We see a lot of patients with mediastinal masses, and you can see the tracheal air shadow getting pushed to the right, and then here the tracheal shadow is pushed to the left. Oh, sorry, this is right and the left, and that will tell you that the mediastinum is shifted, and then thereby you can say what is the problem in the mediastinum. Here, I have a child with a total whiteout lung, and it may be easy to confuse it with an effusion or an empyema. But if you look at the trachea being pulled to this side, classically tells you it is a collapse and not an effusion. And also you'll see the cardia being pulled to this side. So airway is a very important clue for looking for mediastinal shift. So that is the A of the ABCDE. I have another child, 2 years, cough, purulent sputum.
Sir, please change the slides, sir.
I've changed now. Which slide is visible now?
No, sir. Sir, first one. ABC wala slide is seen, sir.
Moving. I'll reshare.
Not moving. Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
Yes, sir.
8-year-old female, you are able to see?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Did you miss any slides?
No.
This second and third slide we missed,
Yes,
sir.
Sakil.
ABC.
Okay, I'll just show you this. I'll just share this quickly. I'll show. This is the one which showed the tracheal deviation, tracheal narrowing, then deviation to the left and deviation to the right. And then you have a collapse, which can be mistaken for effusion, but there is a gross deviation. So that is as far as A is concerned. I have a 8-year-old female cough, which is telling my airway disease, covius purulent sputum. And very importantly, I forgot to tell you in the beginning, never X-ray, look at the X-ray standalone. You must have a background history before you interpret. And our common sense tells that if your 8-year-old child comes with purulent sputum for 3 months, I'm also obviously looking for a suppurative lung disease. And if you look carefully, you will see the bronchiectasis. Of course, X-ray chest is not the ideal one to look for bronchiectasis, but you can see that there are shadows here. These are called air bronchograms. In a normal X-ray, up to 3 is normal. If you see anything more than 3 air bronchograms, then you start suspecting there is something problem. So these are some examples of shadows of the airway, which will help you for interpreting. Now, when you move on to the B or the parenchyma, one very important thing that you should know is what is called a Silohet sign. I'm sure all of you would have heard, but for the younger faculty, let me explain to you what is a Silohet sign. Very useful for detecting and localizing abnormalities of the chest. And this was first described by a very famous radiologist, Benjamin Felsen. Now, in a normal X-ray, only 4 things they cause shadow: the air, the fat, the soft tissue, and the calcium. Calcium causes the white shadows, the air causes the dark shadows, and I think in between will cause a gray shadow. Now, and lung is a 3-dimensional structure. If 2 soft tissue densities lie adjacent to each other, the margin between the 2 will not be easily visible. I'll show you some examples, and that way it will help you to say what plane of the shadow is available. If these 2 shadows are separated by air, then the boundaries can be easily visible. We'll show with some examples. Now, the usefulness of Silohet sign is it can localize abnormalities in a PI film without the need for a lateral view. Of course, CT can tell you better. And the loss of clarity of structure, just a hemidiaphragm or the heart water missing, also can be isolated. Now, you see an example of this. I have an X-ray here, and let us say this patient developed a pneumonia. Now, you'll see the cardiac border, which is so clearly visible previously. I'll show you here. The cardiac border, right border, is very clearly visible. Now, this pneumonia which has happened in this zone has obscured the cardiac border. If you don't know Silohet sign, you'll easily say that's a lower zone pneumonia. But now we know that the middle lobe of the lung on the right side lies in the same plane as the cardiac shadow, and the pneumonia of the middle lobe will obscure the margin between the cardiac and the pneumonia. So you can straight away say that this shadow what you're treating is a middle lobe pneumonia. Not only the cardiac silhouette, but you can have shadows obscuring the diaphragm and more importantly, the mediastinal structures. For example, this is the aortic knuckle. Anatomically, we know that the aorta goes behind. And if a shadow obscures this aortic knuckle, we know that this mass or lesion is the posterior mediastinum because that's where your vessels are there. Supposing there is a shadow here, that is the azygos lobe, which is in relation to the esophageal groove, and there a lot of lymph nodes and mediastinal structures come. So you can interpret it. We'll show with an example. This patient, I have taken a lateral plate and I've very clearly shown that on the lateral plate I'm able to see it's a middle lobe pneumonia, but I identified this in the AP projection itself. Now I have another child who developed same area, a shadow, but here you can see contrast to previous, you can see the medial border of the cardia very clearly, but the diaphragm has been obscured. So obviously this shadow is not the middle lobe. Because it is obscuring the diaphragmatic shadow, I'm easy to conclude that it's a lower lobe pneumonia. Same thing is shown in the lateral plate. You will see the previous shadow was in the middle lobe. Now it's sitting posteriorly, and that's why you are seeing it as a lower lobe pneumonia. Now, supposing you have a shadow here in the upper zone, like I told you just now. Now you see that this aortic knuckle, which is easily visible now, that the border between the aortic knuckle and the mass lesion is obscured. So whatever shadow is there is coming from the posterior mediastinum. Here, look at this, and thereby we are rightly to conclude that is a neuroblastoma or a posterior mediastinal structure which is arising. So looking at the silhouette sign is a very important clinical clue. So of course, you will have to have a good history, but looking at whether the adjacent borders are obscured or not, you can easily detect the plane of the shadow. Of course, based on that, you can order CT or something like that so that you can more easily identify. But silhouette sign is something very useful when you want to interpret shadows in the lung parenchyma. Just to show, it's a normal aortic knuckle what you are seeing, but the mass that is there obscured the aortic knuckle. That means I'm seeing it in the posterior mediastinum. Now, if there's a pneumonia behind the heart, retrocardiac pneumonia, lower lobe, then you'll see a double shadow. One shadow of the collapsed lower lobe, and you'll also see a cardiac silhouette. But if the same thing has happened to be a lingular segment of the left lung, then the cardiac border has been blurred out. You can't see the cardiac border. So it's easy to differentiate a lingular pneumonia from a retrocardiac pneumonia. That is how silhouette sign is helpful. Next, we go to the B of the ABC, and B, the lung parenchyma. This is where all of us are familiar, and then we tend to diagnose our pneumonias. What do we want to look for in a lung parenchyma? We want to look for consolidation, collapse, cavity, cyst, or a mass. But I'm sure there are a lot of postgraduates in this audience, and there are a lot of professors who, because of their limited motility, they take calls from home. And I have a PG who admits a patient at 10 o'clock in the night, and I ask what is the X-ray, and 3 different or 4 different PGs describe the X-ray in 4 different ways. And as a professor sitting in my house, I don't know what is what. He says X-ray is perihilar infiltrate, paracardiac haziness, bilateral sticky opacities, fluffy shadows, patchy pneumonitis. So these are all very confusing terms. So to make things easy, what I have said is, if you look at the lung shadow, broadly speaking, you classify it into whether it is homogeneous and it occupies the anatomy of a particular lobe. Maybe it's upper lobe or a lower lobe or a middle lobe, and it should be homogeneous. When it's completely white, there's no variation in this, that becomes a lobar pattern. It's homogeneous. In children, because of the hematogenous spread of the pneumonia, we can see bronchopneumonia, which is patchy, and sometimes in viral pneumonias, we can get an interstitial pattern. And these two are non-homogeneous. So basically, when you see a lung shadow, you see whether it's homogeneous or non-homogeneous. Homogeneous, if it is occupying the configuration of a lobe, we call it lobar pneumonia. If it doesn't confine, then it may be a mass lesion, like a lymphoma, we'll show it. But if it's patchy, like a cotton wool appearance, or it is lace-like, then you tend to think it's non-homogeneous, and that's how it will give you a clue for the diagnosis. Now, if I show diagrammatically the various lung shadow, you can have a consolidation, you can have a lace-like pattern interstitial, you can have a nodular pattern, or you can have a collapse, and also you can have a cyst or a cavity in the lungs. Now, if you want to look at the examples of these different shadows, you have something called the linear shadow, which is seen in an X-ray like this. You have a reticular shadow, which is lace-like. Sometimes, like in miliary, you get a very nodular shadow, or it can be a combination of reticular and nodular. You can get like this. I have a 10-year-old child with dengue fever, and you will see a lot of cotton wool appearance. This is fluffy shadow. A 13-year-old guy present with increasing pallor, worsening dyspnea for 15 days, recurrent anemia since 2 years. And you will see this is a very classic interstitial pattern. These are called streaky opacities, and this child had pulmonary hemorrhage, and she was ANCA vasculitis positive. Now, the classic consolidations, all of us are very familiar, so we can run through this. That is a right upper lobe shadow. And there's probably a bit of collapse also because trachea is shifted. And generally, we don't take lateral plates. If you do take a lateral plate, it looks like, here it looked like an upper lobe, but here it's more of the apical of the lower lobe. The other thing that you have to notice is this is a horizontal fissure which is pulled down, and you will see a shadow here. And like I said, the silhouette sign, the cardiac border is not very well visible. So it's probably a middle lobe pneumonia with a bit of collapse because the horizontal fissure is shifted down. In contrast, you have a shadow in the same area, but the cardiac shadow is very clearly visible. Diaphragm is not visible. So this is probably a lower lobe pneumonia. Then you have shadows on the left side. This again, cardiac border not visible. So it may be lingular segment or a lower lobe segment. And you have fluffy shadow, non-homogeneous shadow, and that is probably like a bronchopneumonia. So anything? Some voice interpret. Hello? Hello? My slides
Yes,
are
sir,
moving.
you are audible. महेश, सगळ्यांना म्यूट करा.
So when you want to look at pneumonia, please keep in mind, look at these areas very clearly. Look at the costophrenic angles because there could be a sympneumonic effusion. Look at the pleural spaces for empyema. Look at the diaphragmatic margins. It may be overlapping and blurred. Look at the cardiothymic silhouette because you may have missed a thymic shadow. You look at the vascular shadow. Sometimes the pulmonary vasculature can be abnormal in pulmonary hypertension that can cause a shadow which will mimic a parenchymal shadow. And look at the major fissure, right side horizontal fissure. If that is pulled down, it will tell you there's an adjacent collapse. And like I showed in the bronchiectasis patient, you look at the air bronchograms in the cardiac shadow. More than 3 air bronchograms will tell you there's a consolidation or a bronchiectasis there. And you look at the lung volume. Is the volume shrunken? Is it overinflated? It will give you a clue whether there's an underlying collapse or not. So, and patterns of variation, like you have a reticular. So these 9 points you look at when you want to interpret a pneumonia and its associated complications. A few points about collapse. I have pictures of collapse, right upper lobe collapse. Now here you see, you can say a left upper lobe collapse, but what is more important, you look at this lung volume, it is completely decreased, and opposite lung is overinflated. This is what we call as a compensatory hyper. There's a loss of lung function on the left side. So to compensate for that, this lung expands. So you see a compensated hyperinflation. Now here I have a total collapse on this side. You will appreciate the trachea being completely shifted. Barely, there's no heart margin visible at all. You can see the vertebral body very clearly. That means the heart has been completely pulled to this side, and there is a gross hyperinflation. It may be mistaken for a pneumothorax on this side, but when you auscultate the air, it will be very good here. But this also will give a hyperresonant note. So collapse can come in various forms. Now, like we looked at points for consolidation, there are about 7 or 8 points to identify collapse. First thing is you have a sharp margin at ending at the hilum. Depending on where the collapse is there, if the lower lobes, the hyperinflated lung can push the diaphragm down. We showed the trachea can get shifted. And because the loss of lung volume, the ribs get crowded, and the opposite lung or the remaining lung may get hyperinflation and shift of adjacent structures. It may be a minor fissure or it may be a cardia in the last case what we saw. So these are the things that you should look for. And when you can't get a clue, look behind the heart. So these are the points that you should look for when you want to identify collapse. It's very important because a persistent collapse will warrant a bronchoscopy to remove mucus plug or a foreign body. So it's very important to look at the X-ray with only consolidation or there is adjacent collapse and consolidation and the collapse is persistent. That's when you may have to do either a CT scan or a bronchoscopy and things like that to evaluate. I have a 2-year-old child presented with failure to thrive, recurrent coughs in 6 months. When I examined the chest, no findings. Mantle is strongly positive. Father is diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis and chest X-ray is ordered for the child. Now, very classically, you will see here a lot of linear opacities and you will see a large lymph node here. Of course, the positioning is not correct. This is a very classic example of a primary complex, which is a Gauss focus is not radiologically visible, draining lymphatics and a regional adenitis. You don't see this kind of picture very clearly. And these pulmonary pathologies, clinically, there won't be any finding. Only history and this kind of X-ray will give you a clue for the diagnosis. I have a 5-year-old boy from orphanage brought with a history of fever of 1 month, loss of weight and breathing difficulty. Other than wasting, clinical examination is normal, Manto is negative. We don't know if there is a contact of tuberculosis and we order a chest X-ray. And you will see classic miliary shadows in this patient. And we know, again, miliary shadows do not produce a lot of lung findings. So that's it. That's a very important message that you have to learn. 3-year-old child brought with a history of fever of 5 days, respiratory distress with grunting, examination looked sick, moderate distress, bronchial breathing on the right side. This child H1N1 is positive and we take a chest X-ray and you will see a classic consolidation and you will see the air shadow very clearly. So this is a H1N1 pneumonia, right upper lobe consolidation. So you start treatment, you start on oseltamivir, continues to have high spiking fever. And that's when we look at the repeat X-ray and what you will find is a completely different picture after 4 days. What was a clear area of consolidation now has started breaking down. There's a small pocket of pneumothorax. So obviously this patient is going for a complication of necrotizing pneumonia. A 6-year-old male presents with cough of 2 months, occasional sputum production. Weight is 29 and height is 117, 119. Air entry is equal, no bronchial breathing. Grandfather was treated for tuberculosis for 5 years back. And obviously this child has been received, at least 2 times this child has received anti-tubercular therapy because an outside X-ray showed a shadow here. What is peculiar here, in spite of the grandfather being a tuberculosis patient, you see a thin-walled cavity here, and if it's a tubercular cavity, for whatever reason, the cavities are always in the upper zone. It's very unusual to find a cavity in the mid zone or lower zone. Hence, this is a very classic case where you need to order a chest CT, and this CT showed that is a very unilocular cyst, and a surgical correction made the patient completely all right. So these are the shadows like consolidation, collapse, and you have the cystic changes. A 9-year-old child with cough, insidious onset, allergy, asthma, no chest pain, occasional fast breathing, and clinically there's significant dull note to percussion on the left side, decreased air entry on the left side, and my PGs very clearly said this child has got a effusion. That is the X-ray, right? But the air shadow is completely in the center. And you see normally in children, the right heart border should be influshed with the vertebral column. This looks like slightly pushed, right? It's opacity. And because this child has received multiple antibiotics and still the shadow is persisting and it doesn't fit into any global configuration, we did a chest CT and that showed it was a solid mass and that turned out to be lymphoma. So when we talk about B, we are looking at consolidation, we are looking at nodular opacities, we're looking at solid masses, and we're also looking at cystic lesions. So you go systematically, and of course with a good history, you'll be able to find out what is the problem.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Yes,
There is
sir.
a time limitation.
Well, how much time I have?
5 minutes, sir.
Okay, I'll just run through. Now we have finished A and B, which is the most important. Cardiac shadow should not be missed, and we should know that these are the landmarks of the cardiac chambers on a chest X-ray. And I'll show just a short of time various cardiac silhouettes. All of you are very familiar. You should never miss such a cardiac silhouette in a chest X-ray. Then you look at the diaphragm. This is a normal diaphragm. In a lateral projection, you should be able to see clearly two cupola of the diaphragm. But there are abnormalities of the diaphragm, like the anterior diaphragmatic hernia or the classic diaphragmatic hernia, or sometimes you can even get an eventration which can come like this. Once I had a patient with a hepatic mass which had pushed the diaphragm up. So looking at the diaphragm A, B, C, D we have talked about, and very importantly look beyond the lung, where you look at the pleura, mediastinum, the bones, and look at the extrapulmonary shadows like calcified lymph nodes. And these are the examples. For example, I can see the anterior ends of the ribs, and I can see the upper end of the humerus showing the rickets-like feature, and I can see the subcutaneous emphysema. You should not miss, which can happen in staph pneumonia. You should not miss a pneumothorax with a margin, collapsed margin there. And you should not, especially with patient with dengue, a thin lamellar effusion, you should not miss. So these are the E of the head. Now finally, we touch upon pleural disease. Small effusions, if AP picture doesn't show, of course, now we got ultrasound, it's easier. You can take what is a lateral decubitus, make the patient lie down, and effusion may become more easily visible. So this is example to show the pleural effusion. Just few slides on the mediastinum. The most confusing structure in the whole lung is the hilum, where it's a conjunction of a cardiac, parenchymal, lymph node, and other things. And most difficult to interpret a hilar shadow. Lot of times people say there's hilar opacity. Very often we take X-rays to look at lymph nodes. It's a classic one like this with tracheal distortion, you can make out easily, but many a times it may not be that easy. So help will be with the lateral plate. When you take a lateral plate, that's the right pulmonary artery, left pulmonary artery. This zone normally is dark, and if that is opacified, then you can think that there's a hilar lymphadenopathy. And on a lateral plate, it goes by what is known as the donut sign. You'll get a donut sign for a lymph node enlargement in the lateral X-ray. That was confirmed in this patient. So we'll skip this. Other shadows, there are many shadows which can produce hilar opacities. You can get a thymoma, hydrated cyst, a bronchogenic cyst, a dilated right pulmonary artery, bronchiolitis, and all of them can cause hilar shadow. Only thing that will help you is a good clinical history, and probably next imaging modality will help you to delineate. Very often we have seen children with hyperinflated lung, like for example, this is a child with lobar emphysema. Don't forget clinical examination, because when you auscultate, this area air entry will be decreased, and in a small child with respiratory distress. If you have a child with bronchiolitis, X-ray findings may be normal. But I will show you how you can say the lung is hyperinflated. These are the points. But when you take the X-ray, drop 2 points, one at the costophrenic angle and the cardiophrenic angle, draw a straight line, and from the highest point of the diaphragm, draw a perpendicular line at that. And if less than 1 centimeter, that means the diaphragm is pushed down and it is a hyperinflated lung. And this can be used objectively for improvement. In a child with bronchiolitis, if I have repeated X-rays, this line, this perpendicular line becomes 1 centimeter, 1.5, 2 centimeter. That means lung is slowly become normal from hyperinflation. And causes can be. So to conclude, a good knowledge of anatomy always help to interpret the images in chest better. Technical issues should be always kept in mind when you want to interpret. Always interpret chest X-ray in the background of a good clinical history. And when in doubt, consult a radiologist. Thank you. Sorry for exceeding my time. Any questions? If it is there, I can take.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was such an excellent, elaborative and concept clearing session. I think this lecture cleared up many queries regarding pediatric X-ray chest reading. I think many delegates must be having some queries still, but we are running short of time, so we have to skip this question answer session. So, sorry audience, we'll have to move to the next session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.